I would back this up and say any investor that's looking at this company for the first time, looking at eWellness and the physio platform, what they need to understand is that physical therapy is a $30 billion industry every year in the United States. $30 billion. And they use no technology to deliver that $30 billion in value. So we are one of the first real technology providers that shifts the balance of the model within physical therapy that is actually a true disruption as a technology, not like an EMR, not like a scheduling or clinic management system, something that actually changes the way money will change hands and the way that the business is actually delivered. That's an exciting thing for a lot of investors that want to look at something that's new, that's different in an industry that is not small.
Hello, my name is Peter Schultz. I'm the president of Cashflow Heaven Publishing. And normally we concentrate on cash flow strategies, particularly short-term option selling strategies. But once in a while, I run across something that's so good and so compelling, it really requires a second and third look. And I stumbled across a company, started to investigate them, got to know the principles of the company, and I've actually taken a fairly sizable position myself. And I thought I would bring it out as a company that you might want to take a look at. This is one of these rare instances where the company is poised for some pretty explosive growth, yet you can get in on the stock, at least for the time being, for a fairly reasonable price. And so with the idea of wanting to bring you the information right directly from the source, I asked if two of the principals of the company would join us here today for a short interview to give you an idea of what's going on and the potential of this company and what's really happening in the immediate future, what's really going to affect the stock. And to that end, I've got the Chief Executive Officer, Darwin Fogt, with us. If you'd like to say hi, Darwin.
Thanks for having us, Peter.
Thank you for being here. And the Chief Technical Officer, Curtis Hollister. And Curtis, thank you also for being here. So I'm going to start off, if you don't know anything about the company, you don't know anything about what they offer, what they do, I want to start off with Darwin. Darwin, if you could just tell us what the company's product is, why it's innovative, why it's different, and why it might end up being quite a disruptor in this industry.
Thanks again, Peter. Absolutely. So what we have is an absolutely disruptive product for the world of physical therapy. So I myself am an orthopedic physical therapist. I'm a practice owner. I have 6 clinics in Los Angeles, and I recognize the traditional patient care model needs to change fundamentally. And what that means is we need to implement technology into patient care. So what our platform does is just that. It's a telehealth platform that connects the patient with the provider through the computer. So what that means is the patient can now get access to physical therapy care from the comfort of their own home. So what we have is a platform that will allow the physical therapist to monitor and prescribe exercises to a patient who's working out remotely. So what this means is the patient doesn't have to spend the time to come into a clinic to get the care, which is the traditional care model, which is just inefficient at best. So what it means is the patient now has the ability to exercise or do their therapeutic exercises on their own time in their own space. So they're going to be more compliant with the care, which means they're going to have better outcomes. And the physical therapist then can implement technology to scale their practice. So it is fundamentally disruptive to the industry, and we're very excited about it.
That sounds great. Now, just so that I'm clear, how does this work? So it's a live physical therapist, and they're actually able to view the patient, and can the patient view the physical therapist, or how does that work?
That's exactly right. It can be a one-on-one encounter with the physical therapist and the provider. The patient gets to use their own device. So whatever mobile phone they have, whatever tablet they currently utilize, whatever computers they have in their office or at home, they're able to use, which is one of the benefits. They don't have to learn new hardware or new devices, so they can access it from their own phones. So yes.
I can see where this would be really nice for somebody. I mean, if you hurt your foot or hurt your knee and you can't drive your car into the physical therapy office, I could see where this could be actually a necessity for some people, or even if you're remote, if you're out in the country, you're not really close to a clinic, I could see where this could be very beneficial. But there's a lot of programs out there right now. I just think of Skype as one, and face-to-face time, and these different video interface type programs. And Curtis, I'm going to address you with this question: is how is this different? How is there any barriers to entry into what you've created? I mean, could another company come along and just use Skype to monitor people over their computers?
Right. I mean, the truth is, a lot of forward-thinking physical therapists have been using Skype to do this. But though a lot of those guys that were the first users in trying to interact with patients that way are now our customers. So once
why is that? Explain that.
Once they see things that are specific to physical therapy. So in the case of like one-on-one sessions, which would be like a Skype session, physical therapists need to be able to monitor or measure specifically range of motion and put that into their reports to file possibly to insurance companies. There are notes that need to be captured, which are called SOAP notes, that are embedded within the system. Things that are just part of the business process within the physical therapy care model are built into this system. So although the video is one piece of it, certainly there are other pieces that are not, that are totally like physical therapy specific. Then add on, like Darwin talked about, home exercise programs. So when people do physical therapy, a lot of it is strengthening, stretching. They're called therapeutic exercises, therapeutic activities, neuromuscular reeducation if they have balance issues in some cases. So a lot of those exercise programs are assembled in our platform. Skype can't do that. So every single patient will have their own exercise program, and if you're a physical therapist, you can monitor, 8 or 10 or 12 of these patients at the same time, which totally scales your revenue model, but also just like how many people you can serve. And that's specific to our platform only.
Well, I think that sounds intriguing. Now, unfortunately, what seems to be driving a lot of healthcare today is the insurance companies and whether or not care is insurance reimbursable. So this remote technology where one physical therapist can say handle 6 patients at one time, how do the insurance companies view that? Can the physical therapist get compensated for that, for example?
Yeah, I mean, certainly the insurance market is just starting to embrace telehealth for physical therapy. It has been embracing telehealth with doctor visits. So there are some insurers that have policies on this that support it, some of them that haven't defined those policies yet. But in any way, all insurance companies are moving to what's called capitated rates. So instead of going, hey, listen, I'm willing to pay you $90 for every one of these visits, and I don't know how many visits you're going to have. What they're now doing is saying, hey, listen, either you've got a health spending account, or I'm only going to give you $400 for this rehab, and that's the flat rate. So do as many sessions as you want to do, but I'm only going to give the PT $400. And that's being replicated over and over with bundled programs, capitated programs, especially things where they've got, they want to estimate the cost of that. And again, that's where our interests are directly aligned with the insurance companies.
Well, so to that end, let's say the insurance company says, I'll give you $400 for all your sessions for this. Is what you're doing with the telehealth, in the comfort and convenience of someone's home, is that the same price they would pay to go into a physical therapy office, or is it less, or how does that work?
It's actually quite a bit less. So it's absolutely, yeah. So and that's why the model works, is that you can scale by treating multiple patients and accepting a lower reimbursement rate. But by being able to work with those insurers and provide this model of care that's going to get them the same outcomes for their patients and give it at a lower rate, then you're going to be able to acquire those insurance contracts and basically get to control the patient experience and really ultimately become the physical therapy provider for that insurer.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is kind of an interesting shift in the conversation here, because up until now we've been talking about maybe individual physical therapy clinics or a chain of physical therapy clinics sort of embracing this technology and bringing it on. But Darwin, you just brought up insurance companies. So I can see, one of the things that we know about insurance companies is that they're always trying to lower their costs. They're always trying to lower the cost of healthcare, which is actually really important for all of us because healthcare costs have been skyrocketing. but simultaneously they want to see better outcomes for the patients so that the person with the knee problem isn't showing up 6 months or a year later with the same knee problem because it really never got fixed. So how are the insurance companies looking at this product and this technology?
Well, we talk about healthcare trends, and nobody really knows where healthcare is going to go. But like you say, the bundled payment approach is coming. Outcomes-based reimbursement versus fee-for-service is definitely coming, and this is something clinically that we've had to deal with moving forward. Is that insurers pay us less and less per patient. So it's always been a struggle with me as a clinical owner to try to battle these insurers. But now eWellness, what we've done is taken a much broader vision, and rather than trying to go after the physical therapy practices as our customer base, we're actually aligning with the insurers to be able to provide care through the insurance companies.
Okay, so this is what I'm asking. Have the insurance companies started to embrace this, and what does that mean to eWellness? And I'm talking, when I say insurance companies, I don't mean even, there's the traditional insurance model, and then there's the self-insure model, there's the the health accounts. That entire world, it's starting to change, and I would think that they would love this because you do get better outcomes at a lower price. So can you kind of tell us what's happening in that area?
Absolutely. On that landscape, as you identified, there are the major insurers, which we're all aware of. There are workers' comp carriers, which exist, and increasingly there are these third-party administrators, or TPAs, who basically serve.
What does a third-party administrator do? What do they do?
They serve as, in a sense, a gatekeeper, and basically they are managing utilization of physical therapy and other services. So,
well, I mean, could you make it a little bit simpler? Do they provide healthcare services for small companies or large companies, or what exactly is it that they do?
Exactly. So the TPAs, what they'll do is consolidate a number of small companies and manage the care. So it's a volume-based approach by insuring the smaller companies and the self-insured markets.
Right.
Well, that's kind of exciting because I just read recently that small businesses actually are the majority employers in the country, and they actually are responsible for the majority of hiring. But it's very difficult for them because oftentimes they can't get good healthcare coverage for their employees because they're not part of a big group. Right. So is that what these third-party administrators are doing? Is they're sort of getting a whole bunch of these small companies together?
Absolutely. They're just leveraging the numbers and volume of the small businesses. So there's a number of different entities. MSOs is another one that bring together a bunch of small companies with the same types of interests to leverage and reduce their costs for healthcare.
Okay, so I understand that recently eWellness just landed a fairly decent-sized contract with one of these what do you call them?
Third-party administrators. We'll call them TPAs this morning.
TPAs. Okay, so can you tell us a little bit about that? What the company's called? Are they growing quickly? Are they going to provide a meaningful amount of revenue for eWellness? Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So our first foray into this TPA market is with Endeavor. They're very, very aggressively seeking new lives or new insured lives, and they expect to have 100,000 lives under their belt in 2018, January 1st.
So what does that mean to eWellness?
Sure, I can give you the big overview picture. And so the contract reads that we get $1 per employee per month. So we can start there with 100,000, assuming that those are the lives under management.
Okay.
From there, we'll assume an 8% utilization rate among those 100,000 lives. And then we'll make some assumptions here that every physical therapy episode of care may be 6 visits.
Okay.
And we're providing a discounted rate to Endeavor for those visits. So let's assume a $90 reimbursement rate per visit. So okay. $540 to $600 per physical therapy episode. Okay. So what that'll give us is an additional $5 million per year in revenue, in addition to the 1.2 for the capitated rate per employee per month. And that's just based on the one contract with Endeavor.
So 1.2 million plus
Curtis,
5 million.
If you could address that as well. Just kind of give me the big picture here. What does this initial contract mean and thank you, Darwin, but in terms of revenue for the company, and then also, Curtis, because I know you've worked on this as well, what that kind of translates into earnings and what your anticipated margins are going to be.
Right. So from the point of view of business strategy and making sure people understand, it's every kind of first believer in an idea initiates that kind of momentum that allows us to repeat that kind of a client. So in this case, it's Endeavor, where we have these guys want to be able to compete. They want to offer something new, and that something new is telerehab that's going to offer.
And they want to offer it at a pretty good discount to traditional physical therapy. It's not just new; it's better.
Yeah, it's less expensive, it's better access, it's better compliance. It's a lot of the right check boxes for justifying why this is here. So for us, these guys are the first ones. They want to be competitive. Their trajectory is to continue to sign 100,000, 10,000, 200,000. They want to acquire as many lives as possible. And every one of those new acquisitions will mean the same thing for us. So our business model is their business model, and we want to continue to repeat that. From the point of view of margin and how we actually kind of take that and translate it to our own business, we're looking at about a 60% plus or minus gross margin on those.
Okay, so let's just back up a little bit. So just with these, I'm just trying to get a picture here. So just with these 100,000 initial lives that are under management, we're looking at how much revenue per year does that represent?
Approximately 6.2 million.
Okay, 6.2 million, and you've got about 60% gross margins. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So it'd be about 3.5 million in gross margin.
Right. And so this is pretty exciting because up until this point, Endeavor has not seen a lot of revenue. This has been, and once again, Curtis, you're the one that's done so much of this work, is developing the platform so that it really functions. The platform is robust. It can handle a lot of users, and it's effective. And so you built out the technology for that. So this is one of those instances where it's like the duck is going along the surface and is just paddling like crazy underneath. And we really haven't seen through 2017 a lot of revenue and earnings for eWellness yet. There's actually been a lot of investment in the platform and getting the word out there. So what do you envision? I mean, this is all, just so I'm correct, this is all happening at the beginning of 2018, the first quarter. So could we see some, what do we anticipate seeing here in the first quarter of 2018? And actually, this is open up to either one of you can answer this question.
Well, what I can say from the point of view of operations, so I do the technology, which is really the operations of the business as well. So we are operationalizing and integrating with Endeavor as we speak. So that really creates a blueprint for how our engagement model for every patient that's insured, or every person that's insured, interacts with the service and the type of experience that we want to create for them. That work is going to basically translate into every new life that they insure, beyond this 100,000. But it's also going to give us basically the ability to go to self-insured companies, the workers' comps, the other TPAs, all the other people with lives under management, and go, this is the experience that we can create for someone with, that needs hand therapy, someone that needs low back therapy, someone that needs cervical, therapy, as an example. This is the experience that we're creating, and this is the cost that we can do it for. Are you interested? So instead of spending, $17 million a year, what would it look like if you guys only spent $9 million? And I think that becomes a very compelling argument from the point of view of us basically really giving patients what they want. There is not a patient in the world that wants to go in and hang out and go through traffic to park at a physical therapy place. I mean,
especially if you're already injured, if you've already got a problem. So listen, and Darwin, you're in the business. You've got 6 physical therapy practices in the Los Angeles area. You've had a lot of experience with this. In your estimation, is there anybody out there with anything that has a prayer of beating eWellness for quality and really cost-effective delivery?
Well, perhaps I'm biased here, but absolutely not. And there's a number of features that separate us from our competitors. There are other tele-rehab companies that provide a one-on-one approach to patient care. as Curtis has demonstrated, what we do in ours is we also provide that one-on-one care, but we also provide this one-to-many approach with regard to treatment. So it's scalable. No one else in our competitive landscape does that. The other ancillary type competitor are these home exercise programs. And what they do is provide the clinics with a library of exercises. There's no telehealth, there's no monitoring, but they can use these exercises to prescribe them for home care. We also offer that within our own platform for the same price to the insurer.
Okay, so just for clarity here, eWellness is the only company out there that can integrate a wellness program for the employees, so that can radically lower their insurance costs, and they actually integrate that with a physical therapy program. So if you've got an injury or if you've got a little bit of a knee problem, that can also be worked on, as well as providing an entire wellness program. Is that
That's right. That's right. So yes, we have a 6-month wellness program that's already included in the physio system. So the idea is to either, after each patient is discharged from traditional or from telehealth physical therapy care, to give them this wellness program, or go to the self-insured and provide them with this wellness program to offer to their employees. And just so you understand it, as we've modeled this with Endeavor originally, assuming about a 20% engagement with their employees, and we're selling this for $300 per employee, that's going to give us an additional revenue of $6 million a year.
Okay, so what you just said, this is really significant. What you just said has doubled the revenue projections that we just talked about for just the physical therapy side of it. Is that correct?
With the wellness component, absolutely, yes. And one more thing to note, that the wellness component doesn't necessarily need to be monitored by a physical therapist. So that brings our costs even lower for that service.
So I absolutely love this. So here we have the physical clinic world is going to gradually adopt this technology as they see that they need to. But it seems to me that the real growth of this program is with these third-party administrators. You've got one on board already, a very aggressive, fast grower. It looks like we're going to have, or the company's going to have 100,000 lives under management somewhere around there at the beginning of January. And that's exciting. So it seems like the company could probably do well just sticking with Endeavor and as Endeavor grows. But is eWellness also talking with other third-party providers out there?
Absolutely. Curtis.
Yeah, I mean, we're basically, by going through this process, we not only have like a database of the ones that are in our target, population, our target market. We're also trying to basically create other outside the box ideas that allow us to, tap into a lot of audiences that didn't necessarily have physical therapy. And, those are the things that we'll talk about maybe in Q2, Q3, Q4 in 2018. I don't want to necessarily spoil the other kind of projects that we're doing. And there are more than enough. There's, 100 plus TPAs for us to be talking to that, insure millions and millions and millions of lives, but it's going to be the forward thinkers, the real competitive ones, the ones that are hungry to get those, contracts, that I think are going to gravitate to our model, because it is such a modern concept that reinvents the whole industry.
Well, it's always like that in the beginning. Then it's just amazing once you hit this critical mass, how many companies all of a sudden adopt it, and it can become an industry standard. I'm really excited about eWellness because it really doesn't seem like anybody is offering what this company is in terms of both the remote monitored physical therapy and the wellness component. So from an investor standpoint, we're at kind of an exciting time right now, because everybody with a company, with a fast growing company, always wants to get in at the beginning of this S curve. So that big flat part of the S is all, Curtis, all the technology and development that you put into this, making it work really well, and Darwin getting the word out there and laying the groundwork for, this is something that is acceptable. This is something that works. This is something that you've actually implemented in your own clinics. So there's some good acceptance of it. So all of that is that flat part of the S. And it just seems to me that with the Endeavor contract, with this implementation taking place in January, we're really getting on that point of inflection here where you start getting into that really steep part of the curve where you really see a company grow quickly. everybody wants to invest right at that inflection point. They don't want to get in 2 years back when, the company was still laying the groundwork, the foundation for this launch. But it seems like we're kind of out of the theoretical now. You've got an actual contract. You have a pretty good idea of what the numbers look like. What do you anticipate seeing for 2018? And do you think this is something that's good for people to get involved in before those earnings come out for the first quarter? And I think earnings are going to be announced sometime in April for the company. But once earnings are announced and investors can see that revenue and they can start to see some of this money come into the bottom line, I think it's a whole new game for the stock price. So what do you see as an opportunity coming up in the first quarter for investors?
Peter, I think this is about to get really fun for all the investors and for our company. And we've put in all the long hours, the years on end to get to this point. And since we've identified kind of this new strategy with the TPAs, all indications are that we are right at the inflection point of that S curve. So for 2018, we would like to sign on 2 or more other contracts besides Endeavor of at least the same, if not bigger, lives under management and really get this thing going. So as we start to roll out successes that we've had with Endeavor and or the other companies, that's when this thing is really going to take off. And I see that happening in 2018.
That's really exciting. So, with a lot of these companies, smaller cap companies that are just getting rolling with their growth, there's the timing of the investment is so critical, when you get in, and everybody wants to really get in, before the stock really takes off and launches. And I would just say, just based on what you've said here today, that there's a really good opportunity in the first quarter of 2018 to take a really good position, because once earnings come out and once investors can see that, that's concrete. That's not up for debate anymore. Those are real numbers. And, just correct me if I'm wrong, but how much of this is conjecture? How much of this is actual contract that you've actually got in place right now?
Well, I mean, with every contract, we'd be silly to kind of say it's a lock, it's guaranteed 100%.
Wait a second. The contract is signed.
The contract is signed. Okay. The things that are variables with any project are the businesses themselves. So, we're working on integration right now with Endeavor actively. So I don't see any surprises from that point of view. Whether it's January 1st or January 15th, or if those kind of variables change things, those would be things that we basically are open. But I don't see anything that would be a fundamental change within the operating model. I would back this up and say, any investor that's looking at this company for the first time, looking at eWellness and the physio platform, what they need to understand is that physical therapy is a $30 billion industry every year in the United States. $30 billion. And they use no technology to deliver that $30 billion in value. So we are one of the first real technology providers that shifts the balance of the model within physical therapy that is actually a true disruption as a technology, not like an EMR, not like a scheduling or clinic management system, something that actually changes the way money will change hands and the way that the business is actually delivered. That's an exciting thing for a lot of investors that want to look at something that's new, that's different in an industry that is not small. So now couple that with the actual opportunities in the market and the lessons that we've learned along the way. That's what should be exciting to people.
I think it really is. And I think, if you take a look at physical therapy, it's a huge market right now. And I just think it's destined to grow. You've got a lot of baby boomers out there that are starting to have some aches and pains. And in a lot of cases, it's physical therapy that's really the answer. Now, if somebody can get that in the privacy of their own home, they don't have to go anywhere. They don't have to fight their way through traffic. Boy, that's convenient. And if you couple that with actually having a lower cost of delivery, that's a very compelling proposition, especially with the way the healthcare providers are going today. So I think this is a very exciting time for eWellness. I think we are truly at the very inflection point of that curve. I don't think there's ever been a better time to invest with less risk. I think you've got a contract in hand already. I think the company that you've got that contract with is an aggressive grower. And it sounds like there's other third-party administrators out there that would really like to take a look at this.
Yeah. I mean, that's where our thoughts are as well, Peter. You know, what excites me about this is the transformation in the actual experience for our patient, right? It's going to be the worker, the millions and millions and millions of office workers that are, you know, within the country, that all of a sudden they're feeling low back pain. They don't have to wait until they're off work to actually get service now. They could literally get service, be engaged within minutes of that happening. They'll have this new accountability within their management team going, hey, listen, if this is going to be a key metric for our management team, if you have people that are off for injuries, you know, why didn't you get them on the physio program earlier? Or if they're on the floor at a major retailer and they're standing up all day, those are the things that can become preemptive versus somebody actually having to go off for a couple of weeks on workers' comp or on leave.
Well, you know, based on what you said, it makes all the sense in the world. I can see this becoming really the standard of care in the industry in the very short future, and especially with the wellness. That's another big trend among healthcare providers, is keeping people well in the first place, keeping those healthcare costs down. And how many videos do you have now in your library, for your wellness library?
There's probably about 11 or 1,200. You know, that's going to continue to expand. You know, I think when we start talking about, so those are therapeutic exercises, and that covers the gamut of kind of conditions. You know, we'll continue to add to that library, but there's nothing that's not really covered within therapeutic exercises for the most part. When you start to get into wellness programs, you know, we'll start to partner with more and more third-party organizations that have the kind of content that people want. It could be a kettlebell program that somebody wants to be exercising with. It could be a Tai Chi program. It could be anything. It's got to suit to what this person wants to keep them motivated to continue on and adhere to the program's basically schedule. So, I mean, there are no shortage of providers that create great content, and we don't have that as a limitation whatsoever.
You know, I just absolutely love this, because as companies compete to find good employees, they're always looking for good benefits. And so this is actually beyond standard healthcare and insurance. This is keeping people healthy. It's being able to prevent injuries on the job. And I can just see where it'd be really appealing for employers to be able to offer this program.
Totally. Yeah, totally.
Well, listen, I just want to say thank you to both of you. I think we're at a really critical point with the company right now. I think it's, I really have to take my hat off to both of you. You both worked really hard, and the other officers in the company have too, to get to the company to this point where you've actually got some contracts in place. You've actually got some revenue coming in the very near future, and prospects are really bright. So I want to thank you for your hard work, and I want to thank you for being here today and explaining a little bit about what eWellness has coming up here in the first quarter.
Thank you, Peter. And we're really thrilled that you recognize the opportunity with eWellness as well.
Thank you. Thank you both. It's been a pleasure.
Take care.
Thanks, Peter.